Alrighty, I think we're live. Welcome to the September webinar. Today, we're going to be talking to you about renewables, what's changed, what you need to know. There's a lot that's hot off the presses, so we're going to have quite the conversation today. For those of you who are new to the webinar, welcome. We're glad that you've tuned in today. How this typically works is we're going to have an informal conversation for about 45 minutes, and then we are actually going to have some time at the end to answer any questions. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to put those in the chat or ask them, and our panel of experts will be ready and able to address those questions here at the end of the webinar. So thanks again for joining us. Okay, so my name's Mike Trupas. I'm a vice president here at Foresight. Been at the firm for my entire career, so 13 years, and I am joined by my colleagues Adam and Vicky. Vicky, I'm sorry you didn't get the memo. We're doing Maroon Day. Adam and I had a 2.5-hour conference call last night, went through all the wardrobe. We settled on Maroon. So I'm done talking and I'll let Adam introduce himself.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. My name is Adam Lohman. I'm the Energy Advisory Practice Lead. I have a background in direct material purchasing for about 12 years in different industries. And I've been with Foresight about 1.5 years and excited to be on the webinar today.
Welcome. It's Adam's first webinar. We're now 2 webinars in a row with new folks. If you missed last month, you should check it out. We talked about EHS and we went through that practice and a couple of colleagues over there with John and Amanda. So you should check that out if you missed it. And then Vicky, over to you.
Nice. So welcome everyone. My name is Vicky Scott. I'm the Executive Vice President of Operations here at Foresight. My background is energy procurement. So I've been with Foresight for about 8 years, and I've been purchasing electricity and natural gas, helping customers with strategies for about 20 years. So looking forward to our conversation.
Me as well. So just quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with Foresight, I'm going to quickly run you through. Foresight and Cornerstone is a full-service energy, sustainability, and EHS company. We're tech-enabled, so we've invested heavily in our software suite to allow the EHS folks, the energy and sustainability folks that we work with to do their job more efficiently and more quickly. In many cases, we are working with industrial manufacturing companies that don't have on-staff EHS, energy or sustainability people, or they need support. And so in those cases, we can be the entire team. For our larger clients, we are an extension of their team, helping them in areas where they don't have time or expertise. And then, like I mentioned, we are narrowly focused on industrial manufacturing. We find there is a major need right now with the uncertainty in the business environment. A lot of our clients are leveraging us instead of hiring additional staff so that they can continue to make progress on their EHS goals and on their energy and sustainability goals. So that's us in a nutshell. I want to take a minute and switch gears here because we are going to be talking about renewable energy. Vicky, talk to me about why companies care about renewables and energy management right now.
Several reasons. I would say lots of reporting requirements, regulation and compliance. As you all know, you probably need a full-time person just to stay ahead of what's been going on and the changing of the dates and when things are going to be have to be compliant and when they don't. So that's one. Rising prices and this beautiful thing we call supply chain, right? So you probably all know this, but your scope 1 and 2 are probably only about 2% of your overall emissions, maybe 1%. So supply chain and those requirements coming down from the larger organizations are key. So all real great reasons to be looking at this and staying ahead of what's coming.
What a great point. And I actually want to take a moment here. Speaking of rising prices, one area we've gotten a lot of feedback on, and I actually penned a blog post on our website if you want to check it out. It's about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's a major piece of legislation that was signed into law here this summer. And it has some major implications on the industry. So I want to just take a moment and discuss that now. The rest of the conversation will be infused with that. But the reality is this. We need more electricity on the grid. And if you look at the numbers for last year, 93% of all new generation in the US was solar, batteries, and wind. So really what we have right now is those are the fastest to deploy and most cost-effective generation assets. In the OBBA, what happened is the incentives and subsidies associated with that did not change from a number standpoint. So if you're interested in putting on-site solar on your building, you still will qualify for somewhere between a 30 and 50% tax credit. I mean, this is extremely lucrative, and this is why a major driver of why so many projects have been installed. But what did change is the timeline. The old timeline stretched well into the 2030s. And right now, if you are looking at on-site solar, you either need to get started on your project before July of 2026, or you need to have it completed before the end of 2027. So time is of the essence right now. If you're saying, hey, maybe we want to look at solar on site at our facilities over the next 1 to 3 years, you need to look at it right away. Foresight can certainly support you in that, but this is really a timing thing now. They're still very lucrative. We still believe the vast majority of installs in 2027 and beyond will be renewables due to the fact that they're more cost competitive with or without subsidies. But if you want to take advantage of these tax credits, now is the time. So again, just kind of at the front end, wanted to get you updated on that. There's more details on our website. Certainly reach out to us if you want to talk about that in more detail. Okay, so we covered that. Let's back up a little bit and just talk about the energy landscape before we get into some of the details about what your renewable options are. So Vicky, talk to me about the landscape. Where are we at in 2025 and what's changed over history here for energy?
A lot. A lot. So when we look at the energy landscape across the US, I kind of like to put it in some different buckets.
Yeah.
So first of all, the overall grid, right? So the grid, if you think back to when we first came online with electricity, we built upon it over the years. But in some places in the country, there hasn't been a lot of upgrades to that.
No.
So the thing to understand now is we need more capacity. And what that means is there's going to be a huge investment in regions across the country that are going to drive prices higher than probably we would like to see them.
Yeah.
The other thing, key point, and we'll get to this in a few more slides, is but AI is coming, right? So AI is going to create volumes of electricity that's going to need it that would probably power small cities. And so that is definitely going to impact, again, capacity, supply and demand, pricing, all key things that we really need to be thinking about when we're looking at the electricity landscape.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. What a lot of people don't realize, and as we get into the next slide with the data center stuff, is electricity load growth from basically the year 2000 to the year 2020 was flat. We had basically no load growth. No utilities really had any material amount of growth. And now we're going from basically that, where not only was there no load growth, there was minimal investment in the grid, to now there's a lot of investment that needs to be made, and there's a lot of just growing projections here. And again, you can see the wide projections. I don't know, Vicky, if you want to add anything, or Adam, to this slide.
And Adam, please join in too. I think the only thing, like we've seen in Ohio very recently, PJM territory, we've seen a huge increase in capacity. And again, that's going to be directly related to upgrades that they need to do in that region. So really understanding your portfolio and where your organization is located and what regions and what those regulations, what changes are occurring, I think is going to be a real big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing, especially in electricity pricing, the cost for capacity is really the biggest the issue with pricing right now, and that's the biggest thing we're seeing increase, directly related to just the anticipated growth and the growth we're seeing.
That's a great point. We are seeing for electricity price inflation, not much of it is on the generation side. Again, solar gets like the cost curve for solar, it's gone down 99% in cost. So generation is not the issue. And to Adam's point, we're really seeing the driving up of cost is all around the distribution system and the utilities' old approach to that. Speaking of generation, I think a lot of people don't realize how the mix of electricity works here in the US. Vicky, can you take the viewers through just the mix as it is now? And then I think in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how that's changed.
Yeah. And actually, this part is really exciting because I don't think a lot of people realize that just over 21% of our electricity load is renewable today, with around 43% being natural gas, which is incredible. We still have some nuclear, but a lot of the coal, high emitting emissions has really scaled back. And so that's why even when Mike is talking about the ITC sunsetting, There's just been really a real initiative to move forward with renewables, and we do not see that. I don't see that slowing down. That is going to continue, and I think that's going to be very exciting to see.
Yeah, it's the most cost-effective technology and the fastest to deploy, as you can see in these graphs. And maybe, Adam, if you can tell us, I know there's been a lot of changes to the grid and renewable penetration. Like, what are we seeing in like Texas and other places on like records for renewable penetration?
And yeah, so some recent news brought forward this summer, really specific to Texas and the ERCOT grid. For the month of July, it was around 60 to 65% of the electricity generated in the ERCOT grid was from renewable energy sources, which is just outstanding from where we've been in the last few years.
Yeah, and I know there were a lot of people 5 and 10 years ago who were saying the grid would collapse if we had more than 10% renewable penetration. So it is fascinating to see just the accelerated penetration of renewables, and especially in a grid like Texas where it is very market favorable. Like they don't pick winners and losers down there. And so to just see the incredible saturation, that's kind of the second graph here on the right. You can see wind went on a wild ride the last, call it 20 years, and it's slowing. But I would argue, and maybe you guys can offer some insights, like I would argue solar is just getting started.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, hopefully this gives you a little bit more perspective just generally on the grid, how it works, where it's going, and also why, as we kind of switch gears here in a moment, why so much of renewables are interesting, why so many organizations are pushing for this, and why so many organizations are making investments.
Yeah.
So one final piece of context I'd like to lay before we get into the conversation, because it helps drive what options people have, is around the concept of energy deregulation across the country. This is a very confusing map. Adam, can you just take us through energy deregulation and how to make sense of this map?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of different colors, a lot of different shades on the map, which kind of helps describe the complexity of energy procurement in the United States. But at a high level, energy is deregulated across the nation from the federal perspective. That allows each state to really dictate rules and regulate what they desire. And so every state really has its own different set of rules and what commodity they've chosen to regulate or deregulate. So again, a lot of different options. If you're a company that has sites across the United States, it can be very complex trying to manage your energy portfolio, knowing that almost every site and every state has different set of rules. So another thing good to note here as we look at all the different shades here, that even in these states that are fully regulated, there still are options to buy gas from alternative energy suppliers if your load is substantial enough. So I don't want people to look at this and say, oh, we're unregulated, we don't have any options here. If your load is substantial enough, there are still options with the utilities to buy from alternative energy suppliers.
Yeah.
Point.
Good complexity overview. Talk to me. A lot of companies get confused about this. So if your state is deregulated, does that mean there's like multiple sets of power lines or gas pipes, or like how does deregulation actually function in a state?
Yeah, good question. So when we say it's deregulated, that means like really the commodity itself is deregulated. The utilities, the local utilities and distribution companies, they still own all the assets and the infrastructure to get the power and energy to your facilities and to your homes. What you can do is you can buy the actual electricity molecules or the gas molecules from an alternative energy supplier or someone else who has assets in the area.
Got it. So the utility still operates the grid. It's the generation that may come from someone else.
That's correct.
And that makes sense because we're actually going to talk about generation. So before we get into that, obviously procuring renewables involves just generally procuring energy. And so I think it probably makes sense to just take a step back and say, if viewers are trying to understand how to build a holistic and proactive energy procurement approach, what are the main pieces? And obviously, Adam, since you're the one who's helping execute this for our clients, can you just talk about like what are some big pieces to building a procurement strategy?
Yeah, a strong procurement strategy really starts with risk assessment. What is the appetite for risk at your organization? And once you've kind of established that, I mean, again, because there's so many different options and across so many different states, defining one cohesive strategy across all your sites is really the most important part, and that starts with defining your risk appetite. You can buy your energy fully fixed pricing, which really reduces your risk for any market volatilities, or you can kind of leave a lot of that exposed to market volatility if you're really looking to capture the lowest prices when the market is most favorable. So again, the biggest part about it and the way Foresight approaches our clients is starting with that risk assessment and what is the appetite for risk with clients. And then once you've established that, then we can go across your sites, across the states, and start developing pricing proposals and strategies for your individual sites.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. As someone who does relationship and sales here, how well Adam and his team shepherd our clients is it doesn't matter what we want. We want to understand what your goals are from a budget standpoint, from a risk standpoint, and we'll build a strategy that meets you where you're at. I think the other thing, and I don't know if Vicki, you had anything to add beyond this, is I think a lot of our clients appreciate procurement roles can have high turnover. Sometimes contracts can be owned at the site instead of the corporate level. And one thing I think a lot of our clients appreciate about what Adam and his team do is when we're managing procurement for our clients, is we collect all of the contracts across the entire organization, centralize them in a singular spreadsheet, and then meet maybe monthly, maybe quarterly, maybe semi-annually, depending on how big of an energy spend it is, and say, here are where all your contracts are, here's when they expire, here's the risk. And so you can build a proactive strategy because you know where everything is at. We just find that's such a foundational piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said, I agree on. And then also, you are less vulnerable too. We know we've seen lots of clients that we've started serving and they have contracts that have expired, or if something lapses, unfortunately, you would think that you stay at the same level, but you do not. You go back to a standard market price. And again, it's different depending on the state and the utility, but really tracking those energy contracts and making sure that you're safe as an organization is really important.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a 6-month triage dig out process for some clients that have national or global footprints and don't have a pre-built strategy.
Common, as you said, people leave an organization all the time, or a contract isn't filed. It happens all the time.
Great. Well, thanks for helping us understand kind of what the cornerstone pieces of building a holistic procurement strategy are. Okay, so let's dig into the meat of the conversation today around, hey, I'm looking at renewables. What are the different things that I can do? So the next graphic really talks you through, there's 4 major buckets. There's more details beyond, but I'll just say, you can see here, these are the 4 different buckets. On the bottom, you have risk and cost. I think that's pretty self-explanatory from a cost as an investment standpoint. Risk, there can be different risks. So concepts like contracting risk, energy risk, cost risk. There's more dimensions than one on risk, but again, those are self-explanatory. What I think a lot of people wonder is, what is on the other axis, we have additionality. Adam, can you help us understand, what does additionality mean?
Yeah, additionality really refers to adding new assets to the grid. So, as you increase in additionality, that means that we're really building new assets that are going to be generating electricity.
Yeah, so that makes perfect sense. If I'm buying something that already exists, there's not really any additionality. If I'm putting brand spanking new solar panels on my roof, I am truly adding renewables to the mix. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so we're going to go through these in detail, but we always want to give you kind of the 10,000-foot view first, which is, and this is not surprising that they kind of correspond, is there's very low risk, low cost, low additionality options out there, like renewable energy certificates, all the way up to a lot more cost, potentially more risk, and then significant additionality. So we'll kind of take each of these as we go. So let's start with renewable energy certificates. The other thing I'll do is there's going to be a lot of acronym soup here. I'm sorry. It's just the industry we live in. So RECs are renewable energy certificates. These are what are commonly bought in the US. I think Adam and all of us will talk about these as RECs. The real reality is they're often referred to as energy attribute certificates, or EACs. EACs cover things like guarantees of origin, which are more common in Europe, or IRECs, which are common all over the world. So every region has a different name for it. They're all technically EACs. Since we have a pretty American-focused audience, we're going to just use the term RECs, but just know those are all a big jumble of things. So after that preamble, Adam, just talk to us about how RECs work.
Sure. So RECs are renewable energy credits. And essentially what you can do is you can purchase these from a company who basically they can own renewable energy assets anywhere in the United States. And what you're really is you're buying a certificate. It's a one-time purchase that says that I'm going to own the electricity generation, or at least take credit for the electricity generation from that asset. That way you can apply it to your portfolio and reduce your carbon footprint. Those assets can be anywhere in the United States. Doesn't matter where you're buying them from. We do recommend making sure that they are greenly certified. So there's a certifying body to make sure they're legitimate. But it's a one-time purchase, very low risk because there's no annual contract involved in them. They're fairly low priced because, I mean, the assets exist. They're already there. You're just
At least right now.
Yeah, right. You're just buying the certificate, claiming credit for that renewable energy produced.
Yeah, and I guess to give the audience context, Adam's right, they're so low cost. A lot of clients' retail electricity costs would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 a megawatt hour or 10 cents a kilowatt hour. I mean, what are you buying RECs for these days, Adam? Like $2 and $3 a megawatt hour?
$2.
Yeah, I would say between $2 and $2.50.
Yeah, so you're talking 2% of your total spend to get to 100% renewable. Again, caveats there, low additionality, but these are truly respected, which makes good sense. Okay, so that is really helpful. One concept that fits for RECs and also fits with, I think, some of these other technologies as we get through them is the concept of a bundled asset versus an unbundled asset for RECs. Can you guys just help me understand what does that mean? What are the differences?
Sure, I can take that one. So I think the best way to describe it is, well, we can never pick our electrons, right?
Yep.
So that we can't pick those. But if you have a bundled product, you're actually getting the energy and the REC from the same asset.
Yep.
You say, well, why would a company do that? Sometimes organizations like to do that, especially within their region, so that they feel like they're giving back to the community and they're actually purchasing from an asset that is within their location. Where an unbundled REC or unbundled would be anywhere. Like you could be in Michigan and Adam was just talking about Texas, a lot of great opportunities in Texas. So that would be considered an unbundled REC.
What is your take on, is one more respected or legitimate than the other? What do you guys think about that?
I think I don't think it matters one way or the other. I think a lot of people like the marketing story that they're investing in renewable energy sources within their region, within their grid, within their city. So I think there is a bias towards the bundled option just for that marketing story.
Yeah.
But from a pricing perspective, that could also be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, and actually even a lot more expensive. And I think that's going back to what you said about the strategy. So with a renewable strategy, it's just important to know that it's going to cost money. It's going to be expensive. And so the story you want to tell and the amount of money you want to spend have to be in alignment to that strategy.
Very true.
So you're absolutely right. So a bundled REC or a bundled asset with REC is going to be typically a lot more expensive, and that's going to depend on the region. If you're looking for that in PJM territory right now, it's going to be a lot more expensive than MISO territory, which is the Michigan, Illinois area. So even your regions are going to be different.
That's true.
Yeah, that's well said. And certainly, I think they added a lot of nice nuance around bundled RECs are more respected. One thing on the legitimacy side, because we often get these conflated, is RECs are very different than carbon offsets. We talk about this with a lot of our clients. Carbon offsets can still be very fraught, specifically if you are buying overseas carbon offsets where there are not good controls for things to be double counted, for leakage, et cetera, where a renewable energy certificate, specifically if it's Greenie certified or some other serial numbers associated with it, there are real controls around making sure that these are tied to a real asset, they are truly retired and not double counted. So I would say, yeah, maybe they don't offer a ton of additionality, but they really are a legitimate mechanism.
Yes.
That's not just like made up or fake or
absolutely. And I think they're a great runway into your sustainability plan, right? So RECs are a great way to meet your sustainable goals, and then also put together a really solid plan where you're pulling multiple levers, and they just give you the runway to get to that 20,030 goal,
the next
2030.
big,
Yes, you
yep,
got it.
love it.
Almost any plan, though, you're going to need some form of RECs. You're probably going to need to pull several different levers to get to those goals that you've set.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go to the second thing. And often our clients get confused and say, hey, these feel a lot like RECs. So Adam, can you just take us through, obviously we just spent a nice amount of time talking through RECs and unbundled and bundled.
Yep.
What is a green tariff and a green rate? And how does that work?
Yeah, so when you're looking at your electricity rates, there's usually a variety of options. Whether you're looking at industrial rate, commercial rate, residential rate, there is, most utilities, I would say nowadays, offer a green tariff or green energy rate. Essentially, what you're doing is you're buying the electricity from an asset, a renewable energy asset that the utility owns.
Yeah.
And again, as Vicky stated, they're going to be more expensive than your standard rates, but it does give you the option to buy renewable energy right there with your local utility. And especially good for those regulated states where you don't have the option to shop around. Those utilities can provide green energy for you.
Sure. And then in the deregulated states, Adam, what are companies' options for like retail agreements?
Even in deregulated states, utilities can offer the green tariffs, but you can also sign contracts with your alternative energy supplier.
Yeah.
They may have renewable energy assets in the area where they could provide you the bundled service that we were talking about, or they can provide you an unbundled service where they're just going to give you the REC from an asset they have somewhere in the United States.
Yeah, it never hurts to shop. A lot of our clients, I think, when you're shopping at them, will get a price for brown and get a price for bundled green and a price for unbundled green, and kind of you let them pick what meets their needs. So I think that's something I'd encourage all of you if you're doing your own shopping. It never hurts to ask your suppliers if they can give you multiple different prices, and then and can make a decision.
Absolutely.
One last nuance, Vicky, that I think is often wondered is, talk to me, are the green tariffs always competitive to the marketplace?
No, well, we have seen a couple of programs that are very good. I don't know how many people are aware, but we have the Michigan Public Service Commission. Every state has a commission, and utilities have certain things that they are regulated, and they don't really have any flexibility. This is one area where they can actually make money. And so the reason I say that is not because they're not good programs. There are wonderful programs out there, but you just really want to do your due diligence. And to Mike's point, run all the options. Look at your green rate and tariff, look at your national green ERAC, and really see what is going to be most competitive and what's the story that you want to tell. Because again, sometimes you want to go with the less expensive option so that you can save that money for maybe a bigger lever that you want to pull down the road, which we're going to talk about next.
We will talk about next, and I'll just say one of my clients who's a foundry was buying RECs from their municipal utility, and I got it over to Adam, and he shopped it, and he found him $1.50 per REC less in the open market. It's $150,000 savings for that foundry. They were very excited to work with Adam on signing that contract. So there can be a lot of dollars. The great transition, Vicky. So those are the kind of, these first two are very like low barrier to entry, really easy to engage with. Let's talk about some like more hefty, but also more investment opportunities. So talk to me about an off-site power purchase agreement. How does that work?
Yep, absolutely. And I'm not going to give any names, but we're working on a couple of these right now, so it helps to give some practical examples. So PPA, power purchase agreement, with an asset. These are typically longer contracts. They're going to usually be probably minimally 15 to 25 years.
Okay.
That is something that you really need to talk to your executive leadership about, finance about. But with assets going to be farther and fewer between, the recommendations that we are making is you are really going to need to look to sign longer term contracts in order to secure assets. And I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but we are going to see this clamoring for assets because a lot of people have goals that they've set for 2030, 35, and 40. Okay. So basically for a power purchase agreement, we are looking at right now a solar asset that's coming online in 2028. So again, this is a project that is in the mix. We're signing the contract now, but it's not even going to be online until 2020.
So if you have goals for next year, like these aren't even on, like you really,
This-
you need to plan ahead if you want to invest in all
Exactly.
these. You got a lot of additionality, but there's a lot of planning.
Yeah, so a lot of additionality. Once you sign the PPA, the 15-year in this case, your price is fixed, which is actually really exciting. We all know nothing is going down,
No,
including energy. And so we don't have a crystal ball. I will tell you right now, this particular PPA, the price is higher than energy is right now. But in 15 years,
I got a hunch.
having
it's gonna look good.
15-year fixed energy price. I'm not a gambling woman. You kind of are a gambling guy, but
Depends on the day.
depends on the day. We think prices are going to be higher, and we think this is going to be a win for the
Yeah,
client.
if I had a time machine, I'd go back 15 years from now and hedge a bunch of
And I would have done a
prices.
15-year contract 5 years ago in a
Oh, yeah.
heartbeat.
If I had a time machine, I would do that every time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And I think another win with those is the budgeting certainty. Not
Yeah.
that far.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you know exactly what you're going to pay.
Yeah. Great sustainability story. So you actually are helping a developer build a new asset. So besides being on your building, it's the highest level of additionality that you
Huge
can get.
additionality. Yep. All right. So now we're going to get into that. We moved up the complexity chain. Stay with us. This is going to be the most complicated slide and discussion right here. But the other thing people are looking at are virtual power purchase agreements, or the other term is a contract for differences.
Yeah.
Vicky, talk to me about how does this work and what's the complications associated with implementing one of these?
You got it. So first thing is that a VPPA is a financial instrument. That is the most important thing to understand. So don't even embark upon this if you are not engaging with finance.
Yeah.
Now, there are some organizations out there that are doing like a pooled VPA things, programs, and literally they're doing that to help it be more simple. But if you're going with a traditional VPPA, make sure that finance is included and that you fully understand the regulatory compliance and reporting requirements. The second thing that I would say is exactly what Mike said. It's a contract for differences, so it is not fixed. And so let me kind of explain a little bit. Your actual rec portion of it or your to the asset would be fixed. So let's just say it's $5 a megawatt hour.
Yep.
That'll be fixed. Your energy is not going to be fixed, which is the second part of a VPPA. So let me give you an example. If you are building an asset or going to participate with an asset, the VPPA in MISO territory, you are literally going to follow the actual daily settlement of electricity.
Yep.
And then let's say you buy it for $90 a megawatt hour and it settles at $100 a megawatt hour, then you win.
They pay you $10.
They pay you $10.
Amazing. Free money.
Wonderful. If you lock in $90 a megawatt hour and it comes in at 80, you pay the difference.
Not free money.
Not free money. So just very complex. They are not fixed. You just really need to understand the risk and reward for these types of agreements.
You also typically need to be a pretty large consumer of electricity to be able to justify the contracting cost. So we talked about a lot of these, like it's almost no contracting work to do RECs and retail electric agreements. I mean, these are often 5-page contracts, Adam, or less. You get into a power purchase agreement, maybe 15 or 20 pages, so a little bit longer. VPPAs can be significantly more pages. And I know that's not like a perfect proxy, but it is a proxy to understand like the complexity. The last thing I always get to when companies ask about these is like, these could be really great, right? You're providing a ton of additionality, but the reality is, if you want to really boil it down, what you're doing is you're taking on all the risk of a developer's renewable project, and in exchange, they're giving you the RECs. You may think that's a good trade. You may not. Your finance person may think that's a good trade. Your finance person may not. So it's, again, back to Vicky's point, you want to make sure finance is really comfortable because this could be a financial derivative. It can be a really powerful tool, but it also can open you up to more risk than a lot of these others. Again, the downside to signing a PPA is prices could go down in the future. I think we're all skeptical of that, but you're paying a higher price. The risk here is prices could go anywhere, and then you have to make up the difference.
Exactly.
So a lot of complexity there. Okay, so we've now made it through 3 of the 4 major pillars. The last technology we want to talk about, and again, I kind of cut to the chase at the beginning of this, is on-site solar. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about how on-site solar generation works?
Yeah, honestly, it's building solar panels on your facility in your yard. It is you owning the asset and building it and connecting it up to the local grid.
Yeah, for sure. And couple of fun things there. You can buy it and own it. The other thing that gets a little complicated is we talked about PPAs, but those were off-site PPAs. You can also do an on-site PPA. Vicky, do you want to tell them just how like an on-site solar install PPA would work?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. So when you're thinking about on-site solar, I think there's just some constant things that haven't changed over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like your ROI is going to be longer. Again, this gets back to the strategy and how much you want to pay for something.
Yeah.
So on-site solar right now, we're seeing anywhere between like a 7 to 15 year ROI.
If you hit the 50%,
Extending that because of the sunsetting too.
I'd say if you hit the 50%, you can, I mean, we've gotten down to about 5. But
Yeah.
again, at 5-year payback on a 25-year assets,
Yeah.
that's really compelling.
Yeah. It's actually a very exciting story to have solar on your building. We have solar on our building. Our building is not a huge building. It's super exciting. The other thing you need to think about though is overall for a solar array on your building, it's only going to take a very small percentage. I would say average is like anywhere between 20 to,
Yeah.
we like to see at least 20%.
That's great. Yeah.
So, but the PPA process is actually going to be very similar to what we talked about with the
Offsite.
with the offsite PPA. Very similar. We're working on one of these now as well. So again, long-term contract, 15 years. This one though is actually a great price. I think we have a 1.5% accelerator on it,
Yep.
which is not huge.
And I think year 1 is lower than the utility price, which is really
Lower than the utility price, which is very exciting. And it gives you another lever to pull. So you've got your on-site solar is one lever, then your REX maybe is another lever, and we haven't even got into energy efficiency. The best kilowatt hours or the best kilowatt is the one you're not using.
reach it.
So don't embark upon a strategic plan without energy efficiency included.
Yeah, so if you're worried about like a payback or a capital investment, the on-site PPA can be compelling because we are seeing those where companies don't have to put any capital outlay. Remember, you're signing a 15 or 20 or 25-year offtake agreement. Some developer comes, they put all the panels on your building, you agree to a price, and in many cases, like Vicky talked about, that price you're buying it for is already lower than what you're buying electricity from the utility from, and that escalator is 1.5%. Goodness gracious, if I was running a manufacturing company and I could guarantee only a 1.5% escalator in electricity prices, I would take that every day. There's a real high likelihood that we're going to be 5+% increases in electricity prices over the upcoming years.
I would agree.
Another option that I do want to throw out here while we're talking about solar generation is for those that don't have the ability to put solar panels on your building, if you're leasing or you're living in a big city, there are community solar opportunities.
Very nice, yeah.
And that's just an opportunity where the community can come together and build an asset within their local community, and then you can participate in that program. One caveat to mention with community solar, and it even goes back to some of the on-site VPPAs you're talking about, is making sure that you understand who owns the REC.
Huge.
There are plenty of community solar programs out there that as soon as you sign up, you get the benefits, you see the credit on your utility bill, but then you actually don't receive the renewable energy credit, and you can't claim the renewable energy actually at your facility.
Yep.
Make sure that as you're reviewing the contract, you really understand who owns the REC with that.
Oh, what a great reminder, Adam. Anytime you're looking at contracts, understanding where the RECs are flowing and being comfortable with where they're flowing is huge. I can't tell you how many times we met with clients who signed agreements before they were working with us and want to include these RECs in their sustainability reports and their greenhouse gas emissions calculations, and we go, we're really sorry, but this is actually not, like, you're not legally allowed to do that. So very good point and good consideration. Okay, so we just bombed you with a ton of information, and that's okay. Our goal here is to educate as much as possible. However, a number of our clients say, this is great education, can you help me build a strategy? I have no idea what I'm doing here. There's a lot of options. How do I make sense of this? So Adam, maybe you can start. Just talk to us about, like, now that we have all this information, how would a company go about building a renewable strategy?
Certainly. Yeah, I really think it starts with a renewable energy feasibility study. Foresight, we offer those, and what it really is a in-depth look at each of your facilities, the location of your facility, the utilities that provide your facility. We look at the weather patterns. We look at the state incentives. We really do a really deep, thorough dive into all your locations and really come up with almost like a score or like a level of like, hey, this is where renewable energy makes the most sense for you with all these factors. Just think about sunshine alone. Grand Rapids is a lot cloudier than Texas.
Sure.
So solar energy makes a lot more sense in Texas rather than here in Michigan. So really, once we are able to do that and do that in-depth look for you, that way you can look at building that strategy and look to where you should invest in your renewable energy.
Awesome. Vicky, Adam, other items to add on how to make progress on your journey here?
Well, I said it a little bit earlier. In addition to that, fully love that. I would recommend a more comprehensive roadmap. And what I mean by that is you can do anything from doing energy audits across all of your location. We can do virtual ones. We've done that before. It's not quite as granular. But you really need to understand what levers you're going to need to pull to meet your sustainable energy goals. And it's not going to just come, or it shouldn't probably come from one bucket.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really looking at all of your data, all of your sites, and putting together a comprehensive plan so that you know what the journey should look like. How much you can actually pull out from energy efficiency.
Oh yeah, that's
right?
huge.
Again, deregulation, what impact that is going to be.
Can you buy this easily?
Yep. And then at the end of the day, okay, what are the different levers that we can pull and what percentage should we be pulling in each area in order to get to that end goal?
Sure.
Meeting what we've said that we're going to do in whatever year we've said we're going to do it in.
Perfect. Just a reminder, if you have any questions to get them in, we're going to transition to questions in just a moment. But there's one thing that I want to add. I think what Vicky and Adam talked about in building a strategy, looking at holistically your organization is really important. The last thing I'll say, and this is just again, as somebody in the relationship world that I feel passionate about, is transparency. We find the unfortunate truth is the energy industry has a reputation similar to the used car industry, which is it's really opaque. And there are a lot of companies out there that their whole business model is predicated on you not understanding how energy works and them not telling you how their fee structures work and then them making a lot of money and not necessarily providing a whole lot of value. And so here at Foresight, we know that we have to provide more value than we charge. Industrial manufacturing is running tight budgets these days. And so we're extremely passionate, one, about transparency. Adam, Vicky, and their teams are responsible for educating our clients and making sure that they understand what risk is available, what savings are available, what renewable attributes, et cetera, are all on the table. And that's a huge piece of it, is the education. The other piece of it on transparency is just understanding how does the money flow. Traditional broker models, they'll say something to the effect of, you don't have to pay us anything. Although that may be technically true, they're making money from the suppliers that you sign contracts with. And so if you don't have visibility into that, we've seen really unfortunate examples where brokers are marking people's energy up 10 and 15%. And we just find that that's too greedy. That's just not competitive in the marketplace. And so there's this facade of competition, but the reality is that the brokers are just making a lot of money. And so we believe in a transparent fee structure. You can work with us at a flat cost. Or if you prefer or don't have the budget, we can do the commission route as well, but we'll actually tell you exactly how much commission we make. And generally, we're charging somewhere between 1% and 3% of that spend. And we think that's really fair and appropriate to get all of the holistic vision that Adam and Vicky just talked to you about over the last 45 minutes. We think that's a really fair price. And a lot of our clients are saving 5 and 10 and 20% on that spend because of it.
You have another partner.
That's great.
Ask them how they're making their money.
Yeah.
I think that the industry, we need to make sure that we're being transparent. Another thing is energy is just complicated. There's a lot to learn, and our goal is to make it as simple as possible so you can make well-educated decisions, not so that you feel like you have to have us or you can't do anything.
That's exactly right.
That is not what you think is valuable.
Yeah, there's just too many organizations that conflate activity for success. And then really what that is just them needing a chance to justify their fees. So energy prices are going up. however you can manage it with a lot of the strategies that Adam and Vicky took you through in this webinar. So thank you. We're going to transition here into questions. Carolyn is sending them to me on my phone. So the first question is, how do organizations evaluate the return on investment when it comes to renewable energy investments? How do they evaluate the ROI?
That's a great question. I'll make a statement and then you both can ask.
Sure.
The return on investment is extremely important, but I think the underlying why that you need to ask is, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Right? So the ROI is extremely important, but you are going to spend more money. Being renewable is not going to be inexpensive. So the ROI is very important. I'm not diminishing that, but you first have to, at the executive leadership or owner level, you need to understand why you're going down the journey. Because if you don't have total buy-in in terms of why you're doing it, it's going to be very difficult for you to pull the levers when the money does not tell the story that executive leadership wants to hear.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
It starts with the strategy development at the very beginning of the relationship, developing the strategy, talking about why we're doing what we're doing. Part of it is why we need renewables. Is it a customer requirement? Is it a
Supply chain.
Supply chain, yeah, exactly. Understanding the why and building that strategy up front.
Yeah, it's funny, Adam. I was going to say almost exactly the same thing, which is I think organizations, and Vicky said it too, like this is typically not a positive ROI, and that's okay because the reality is there's more to the world than cutting your bottom line. A lot of this is increasing your top line. So if your biggest customer has requirements, doesn't matter what the ROI is. The ROI is actually, you could lose 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever percent that they are of your business. Or in the other way, and a lot of sales folks who bought from us have looked at it as, hey, I'm hunting a really large client. I know I can match my competitors on price and quality and when I can get it to them. And I think if I can beat them on aligning with this customer's renewable energy goals, I can win the business. And so like, it's less about thinking about it in an old fashioned energy efficiency ROI standpoint, because energy efficiency does carry an ROI. Yes. Energy isn't cheap. However, oftentimes I think organizations, and Adam's exactly right, you need to look at your strategy. Why are you buying renewable energy? Do you need to, or do you just want to? Who is asking for it? And building that and then being very focused on, no, we've committed to this because we want to be a good partner. That is the better framework in which to look at the costs associated with renewables as opposed to an ROI framework.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so second question, what common mistakes do companies make when sourcing renewable energy? I know one that we brought up at the end that was really good is making sure, Adam was talking about, is making sure you know where the RECs are flowing in a contract. What other mistakes are we seeing when it comes to sourcing renewable energy?
Waiting too long.
Oh, so well. So well said.
I would say another one is not competitively quoting out your options. Like we've mentioned throughout this discussion today, is that in deregulated states, even in regulated states, there are always a lot of options. So make sure you understand all the options and price out all the different options, whether you're looking at what the utility provides, whether an alternative energy supplier provides, what community solar provides. I mean, there's just a lot of options. Don't just stick with the first one that came to your door.
How many stories do we have, Adam, of one of our clients gets door knocked by somebody who has the greatest renewable solution and they're looking at it, and then you go to them and say, yeah, this is compelling, let's get a bid. And by the way, other companies do this too. If you really want to buy this, let's actually get you a competitive situation and make sure you're buying the best technology. That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, I think those are the big ones for me, is like, timing, understanding where the RECs flow, making sure you're actually like looking holistically at the competitive marketplace. I think those are all big common mistakes when it comes to sourcing renewables. Good. This one is really great, and you might get a rant on this, so sorry in advance. How does battery storage or microgrids fit into a renewable energy strategy?
Well, I'm going to let you talk to this one.
I would just rant. I mean, the short answer is that's exactly right.
It's expensive.
The short answer is they don't fit if you live in the flyover states like we do. Most of the manufacturing in our country happens here in the Midwest and the Southeast. Electricity prices are really low. demand charges are not all that high, and so batteries just simply aren't economic. We're finding batteries are economic in California and Massachusetts and other East Coast areas. Again, some of the places where that have the highest energy costs in the country, right? Not a lot of manufacturing in them. My rant goes like this. Batteries are extremely compelling technology and extremely competitive in the energy landscape. When I brought up the 93% stat at the beginning of the webinar, when I said it was wind, solar, and batteries, Texas is using these a ton. And what's happening is there's a lot of variability for pricing across the day. And what we're finding is these monopoly, vertically integrated, regulated states are not building mechanisms in place that appropriately acknowledge the economic contribution of storage. And again, this is a long conversation that we don't need to get into in this webinar, but what's happening is they don't know how to monetize it. And they only have certain ways that they can monetize things, and their ways of monetizing things are building new generation and building more power lines. But the problem is batteries offer incredible economics. And so this is more of a policy discussion. We're actually finding this is bipartisan. Republicans think electricity is too expensive. Democrats think electricity is too expensive. Independents think electricity is too expensive. And so we need 100%. So we need more pushing around how utilities are regulated to actually appropriately reward these things. So the answer is they don't really fit right now, unless you live in a crazy expensive place. However, they should fit, and they do fit. It's just, can we get a mechanism where the marketplace functions transparently and openly, and they get the economic value that they provide to the marketplace? So sorry, that's my rant. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
I was done at they're expensive.
Thanks for humoring me. I feel like I can't do a webinar without ranting at people. So,
You got it, yeah.
okay, one other question, unless anybody else has anything they want to add, and Carolyn sends over, is that people are asking, you've talked a lot about electricity prices going up. I heard a rumor, Vicky, maybe that you have a crystal ball that you want to look through and talk to us about. Where do you guys see energy prices going, and what's your rationale? Specifically, let's start with electricity. Like, where do you see electricity prices going over the next few years, and what's your rationale?
So to your point earlier, I think that electricity prices and how much they go up is going to be different across the country. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, the East Coast is already extremely expensive, and the West Coast, and has been for a very long time.
That's right.
And again, I don't want to go down another rabbit hole, but I'm going to for a minute. When you're looking at opening new sites, when you're looking at purchasing or acquiring a company, give us a call. Let's do a due diligence project, because there's a lot of costs that are not being taken into consideration as it pertains to energy, renewables, even the cleanliness of the grid. There are some states that your grid is so clean that your emissions are going to be super low. And there are some states where it's so dirty that it's going to take you a lot longer to
10 and 20x the emissions factors. Like, not exaggerating, that big of a difference.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought.
Adam, what's your take on electricity prices?
Yeah, they're going up, and based on what we've discussed earlier with the growth in data centers and the growth of AI in the United States here, I think in the 5 to 10 year scope is electricity is just gonna increase, and primarily again due to around demand and the capacity to move electricity to these data centers. I think it's just gonna escalate everything.
Yeah.
What do you do, right? I said, so what I think I would recommend, jump in. Adam and I do this a lot. We believe in what we call a very strong forward position. So look for opportunities to purchase electricity if you can in the deregulated states at the right time, and longer contracts. Longer contracts if the price is good, or to Adam's point earlier, you could do a portion. You can do a portion of a purchase and then layer it in. So there's definite strategies, but you need to understand your budget and then develop a real strong forward position to insulate yourself.
Yeah, I think electricity prices will be going up faster than inflation. If the OBBA is extended, and what I mean by that is if they do end up extending the tax credits beyond 26, 27, that may help it only go up a bit more than inflation. If that expires, again, like we don't need to get into the details, but like if you want to buy a gas turbine right now for natural gas, which is an interesting and potentially compelling generation source, you can order one today and get it in 2032.
Mhm.
People need power before then. So what's going to happen is if that does expire, I would argue electricity prices are going to go up significantly faster than inflation, which is a major consideration. A couple things. So Vicky's talked about this a lot. To offset that is signing the contracts and deregulated. Anywhere you are in the country, I think topics Adam and I and Vicky, all of us are exploring with our clients are things like how do you manage your peak demand? Because that's a big cost component and something that you may be able to control to help mitigate some of the cost increases.
Yeah.
Another thing we're starting to look at is like demand response. I think a lot of companies 10 years ago when electricity was cheap, we're like, we can't do demand response. And now I think, Adam, we're circling back with a lot of clients and saying, are you sure you can't shut something down for 4 hours 2 or 3 times a year? Because you might be able to get 10 or 20 or 50 or $100,000 in demand response payments. And so there is options out there. You have to work for them. That's the thing I keep saying is, unfortunately, electricity is getting more expensive. It's also getting more complicated. So if you really want to keep that increase down, you have to be able to hang with the complexity that is now getting added into the electricity grid as well. All right. I do not see any more questions. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar for renewables. We want to invite you to next month's webinar. Our esteemed colleagues, Wendy and Cassie, will be talking about ending the paper chase with smarter SDS management.
Love it.
I'll just say this, Foresight, like I mentioned at the beginning, has strategically invested heavily in our software stack to make our clients' lives easier. So it'll be really exciting to have that conversation. Join us next month. And with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.